Welcome to the NFL Kickoff, everybody. I'm your host, Tom Swiller, joined by my co-host,
Tony Nametti.
Our job is to get you in the audience ready for this upcoming week of NFL action, week 14, and we got a lot of fun games we're going to get to talk about, and we're going to go over every single game, even the not-so-fun ones. Looking at you, Detroit, Denver, you're kind of the main culprit in the not-fun bowl. Tony, are they the not-fun bowl? Like, is this a Super Bowl of not-fun teams?
I've actually always thought that there needs to be a toilet bowl at the end of the year. So there's a Super Bowl, and then there's the toilet bowl, which is the two worst teams, and whoever loses that game gets demoted to the CFL.
Wait, okay, how about this? The winner of that game gets the number one pick. So that the first time all season, they actually have to try to win.
Yeah, okay. That's the one game they can't just absolutely throw, and everybody's okay with it.
I think the Lions would be kind of gypped by that because they're, 1-10-1.
Well, they would probably be toilet bowl champs like 15 years in a row. You got to be champs at something.
Them and the Browns. Like, if you put 0-16 Browns and 0-16 Lions, who's worse? That would be truly
That'd be a tie for sure. There's no chance one of those teams wins.
It ended a tie. I like it. I like that ending a lot more. All right, but so we did have two teams that, while they're not toilet bowl teams, they're not great teams, and that's the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Minnesota Vikings. They played in Thursday Night Football last night in a crazy game, but before we get into that, we want to go and give you a word from our sponsors, maybe even our friends at DraftKings. Our friends, Tony?
I would say so.
Yeah, I spend enough time on their websites that I'm basically
frequent flyer miles on DraftKings.
Exactly. So NFL Kickoff is presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Are you looking to bet on the 14th week of NFL action? In week 14 of the NFL season, we have a whole lot of important divisional battles. Tony, this could really be a weekend where we see the playoffs get shook up quite dramatically. We have Dallas at Washington. That one's been made into a really big game, despite Washington being 6-6 and Dallas being 8-4. People are saying, hey, Washington has 2 games left. That could be, a real division turner. We have Jacksonville, Tennessee. Maybe that's not an important divisional battle. Maybe that's another toilet bowl game. Then we have Raiders at Chiefs, which should be really exciting. Falcons at Panthers. That's another game. And then the Ravens at Browns, Bears at Packers. And the most important of them all, Rams at Cardinals. Is that what got you?
I was hearing you said the Falcons Panthers, and I was like, if that was any other team, if you weren't a fan of the Panthers, that's a dumpster fire game, and you know it.
Yeah, I mean,
you got to get your fandom in to go. I saw
that. That truly is a sign of how bad that game is. Is that it's not. It probably shouldn't have made the list. Like, if we did important divisional battles, half of those aren't on the list.
No.
By the way, check out the link in the description to get a deposit match up to $1,000 through DraftKings at the good old Sports 2.0 network. As is our tradition on NFL Kickoff, we are going to start with Thursday Night Football. And guys, if you turned off the game halfway through, say halftime, I don't blame you. I think I actually know a couple of people who did and then turned it back on in the fourth quarter because it was one heck of a game. The two teams, Tony, I stuck it through because I said I wanted to watch the Steelers score a touchdown, and they did. And I was kind of like, this one might get a little bit interesting here. And it did. It got really interesting. I'm glad I watched the whole thing. I didn't take notes on the whole thing, just the first half. But yeah, I mean, it was a really important game. 538 are a really good website. I recommend you guys check out. They gave the game an important score of 74 on a scale of 0 to 100. So, really important to both teams, their playoff chances. Despite that importance, though, it did not feel like an important game in that first half, did it, Tony? You would not know that those are two playoff teams.
You actually texted our little group chat that it was an important game by 538's metrics, and I texted back like, why is that? You have one team that's barely above 500 and one team that's below 500. I didn't really get it.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll get to that in a second, but I too was surprised. I figured it would be like maybe a 50, but 74 is really important. Like, it might be one of the more important games of the weekend, and we'll get into that in a second. When we go through our game picks. It was 23-0 at the half because the kickers decided to pretend that they weren't professional kickers for a little bit for that first quarter.
Yep.
And the Vikings ended up having a 29-0 lead. But, credit to the Steelers, credit to Mike Tomlin. They were not deterred. They did climb their way back into the game. I believe DraftKings had them as like a plus 2,000 money line at one point because they were so far behind. Yeah. And I almost took the live bet because it's the Vikings. But yeah, I mean, they got back in the game. They made it 28-36 with 2 minutes and 16 seconds, and they had to drive the ball from their own 3-yard line. They did move it about, I think, 78 yards, and they couldn't get the touchdown. They had 2 attempts left. Chase Claypool, a little bit of controversy there because he did a first down celebration. We'll get into that in a second too. But it shaved 10 seconds off the clock, so that's arguably a play or two more that the Steelers could have had, and they almost converted on the second one. That was the game ender. But yeah, I mean, it was the most boring half of football, that first half, and then it turned into the craziest half of football where it felt like the Steelers were doomed to come really close and not get it, but the Vikings were simultaneously doomed to lose the game. It was like, whose doom is worse, and whose curse is going to play out more here? And it was the Steelers, unfortunately, but they did make the game a thriller.
They did.
So back to that importance idea, Tony. So before their win against the Steelers, the Vikings were given a 28% chance of making the playoffs by 538. That has since increased to 36%.
Okay.
The Steelers, on the other hand, they won it, they would have jumped to 35%. I believe they had 25%, and now their playoff probability has dropped to just under 10%, somewhere around like 9 decimal something. Mm-hmm. So that's why it was such an important game. But Tony, back to the Vikings. Does 36% sound correct for where the Vikings are, given the almost lack of competitiveness in the NFC?
I don't think the Vikings are out of the playoffs just yet. Now, we've all seen the graphics. Statistically, the Texans are the only ones that are actually out of the playoff
even the Lions
so far. Even the Lions are still in it. So I don't think that the Vikings, we can just rule them out, because I do think that if you look at this team on paper, this is an extremely talented team. I think that Kirk Cousins is a top 5 quarterback, maybe top 7 quarterback in the NFL right now. I think that Justin Jefferson is at worst, top 10 receiver, even though he did have quite a few drops yesterday. And I think that Dalvin Cook, we all think, is top 7 running back in the league. Usually when you have that combination of guys, you're going to be a very good team. And I think that the reason they aren't a very good team is this might be the worst coaching I have ever seen of a good team. Like, you're used to seeing bad coaching with bad teams, that's fine. But if you have a good team and you're wasting them, I don't know who's calling the plays. It might be Zimmer, it might be an OC. I'm not sure on that. But whoever it is, checkdowns and screens aren't going to win you games. And that seemed to be all they did in the first half of the season. This game, they actually kind of amped it up a little bit. From what I saw, they were attempting the deeper balls, and if Justin Jefferson would just catch a little bit more reliably, they would have had some pretty big plays, a couple more touchdowns even. So I do think that if you let this team kind of run and make these big plays, they're fully capable of doing all of the explosive plays that anybody else in the league can do. And we saw that they go up 29-0 against what should be a good defense. I think that's exactly what they're capable of. And I do think that once they do that, then the next problem they run into is, for some reason, they're doing what the Packers used to do in past years, and that was get a massive lead early in the game. Halftime rolls around, you're up 25 plus, and then you just sit on your laurels for the rest of the game, try to run the clock down. It doesn't work. It just doesn't. It just makes for an unnecessarily close game that quite a few times you will end up losing. It's a terrible idea as a Packers fan who had saw it for like 3 years straight. It's horrible. Do not do that. And I think Mike Zimmer is a very good coach. I think he's had some bad coaching this year on the defensive side, which is typically his specialty. But good Lord, this team should be so much better than it is. And as a Packers fan, I love that they're terrible. I have to. But at the same time, I think I want to see great teams be great. And this great team has not been great. And it annoys me as a football fan.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're crazy. The Vikings are honestly crazy. I think the statistic is that they are, I think it's 1-6 in 7 score games, which is just like, at some point you almost want them to regress to the mean, like a little bit, because that statistic is so hard and so crazy. Like, at some point they have to win some of those close games. But there's another statistic where Kirk Cousins, when trailing by 7, is 1-25, and when leading by 7 is 30-2 or something. Like, they're crazily good when they're up late going into the fourth quarter. And when they're trailing in the fourth quarter, like, that's it. Like, that's kind of it's not changing because of Kirk Cousins. So he's a game maintainer, not a game changer, which I think is part of the problem too. Ben Slokak of the Ringer, he said that the Vikings should consider this year a blow up, even if they make the playoffs, because of how much of a mess the season has been. How Kirk Cousins is due, I believe, somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 million, maybe, or a high 30 million next year. The coaches just the past couple of years have looked like decline, and the front office, while putting together a good offense, has really struggled with a quarterback. Kirk Cousins is like their longest tenured quarterback during his time, and it's only been a couple of years. So do you think that it's blow it up time for the Vikings, or if they can make the playoffs, they should keep this team together? Because this offense is incredible.
No, I don't think this is blow up at all, honestly. Even if they don't make the playoffs, this is not a blow up team. This is a bad year of coaching, and I'm going to chalk it up to that. This is an elite team. On paper, this team should be right up there with the top NFC guys. They should be 8-4, 9-3. They should be right there. I think it just comes down to coaching decisions. And I'm not saying fire the coaches and get new guys in. What I'm saying is take those guys and look at, like, what was that great year they had? 2017, 2016, where they were like
17, I think, yeah.
17, they were like 12-4 or something. They actually took the division from the Packers, I think. That was the year that they had Kirk, they had Dalvin. They were just throwing deeper balls. They weren't doing these checkdowns and these screen passes. Like, I think if you're a coach, the screen should be eliminated from 95% of your thought process. Like, the screen is such a rare play that should be called because 99.9% of the time, it's so ineffective. If anything, it loses you yards. So the fact that you're taking a guy like Kirk Cousins, who is extremely talented, extremely underrated, and a guy like Justin Jefferson, who is extremely talented and can catch the deep balls on a lot of DBs, you're wasting those guys throwing checkdowns, throwing balls behind the line of scrimmage, throwing 3-yard out routes. Those are not going to win you these kinds of games. You have to take the deep shots, and they did that. And if they would have continued to do that, they probably would have dropped 45 plus. But no, they had to get a lead, and then they had to try to milk the clock, and we saw what happened. It almost cost them the game.
Yeah, no, I mean, it really did. That Steelers should never have been in that game to begin with. I know Kirk Cousins, he played a really good first half and then had 2 interceptions in that second half. I don't know. I definitely am not in the mindset of blow it up. I was very surprised to see someone arguing to kind of blow it up and this is a problematic trio. I do think that we should be kind of worried about Kirk Cousins' cap. Like, that is going to be a lot of money for a quarterback. I know you're very high on him, Tony, but I don't. I think he's talented, but I think he needs to kind of have everything perfect, if that makes any sense. Like, he has one of the best young wide receivers in the league. He has one of the best running backs in the league, and they do score, but we also saw them really struggle early on in the season too in some games. Like, they seem to just fall apart in the fourth quarter.
Well, I don't think that's on the players really. I think that's just on the general play calling and how the management wants the team to kind of feel the game as a season, or as feel through the game, I guess. Like, they start very slow most of the time, and it costs them a lot of points. Like, we literally just saw them. Once you open them up and you let them kind of do what they're good at, they can drop 29 and a half, like, without that much trouble. That was with Justin Jefferson having a significant number of drops early in the game. They could have put up 30 plus in that first half. It was insane to see how efficient this offense was. So I think that you have to pay Kirk what he's due, because
he's got to be paid.
Because just to be totally honest, I don't care who you go out and get next year in the free agent market. Unless you pull in Aaron Rodgers, you're not getting somebody better than Kirk Cousins. Yeah, but didn't Russ say Vikings aren't in his wheelhouse of things that he would do for his no trade clause or whatever?
They aren't, but I think he should be open to them.
I think he should be open to them, but I don't think it happens. Like, I don't think the Rodgers things happens either. But it was the Giants, the Saints, and one other team.
I believe the Raiders.
And the Raiders.
Denver. I know Denver was last year at least.
Okay. Yeah, so those are the only teams that Russ said he would waive his no trade clause in his contract that is currently in there. So I think that if you're Minnesota right now, you got to pay him, because you can't draft anybody. There's nobody in this draft that's going to be any good.
Yeah, for sure.
There's not really going to be anybody in the free agent market, and there surely is not going to be any in the free agent market that are as good as Kirk Cousins. Because I know a lot of people don't think that he is all that good. We just did a segment last week where we read off guys' stats and took away their names and where we had them in the MVP rankings, and Kirk Cousins was like 3. Because if you look up Kirk Cousins'
Yeah, no,
stats,
for sure.
he has quietly
High.
had a phenomenal year, and he's quietly had very good years for the past 3 years. So I just think that he's extremely underrated, and you're not going to get a guy better. You're just not.
Yeah, Kirk did not have a great game last night, but his Zelo score dropped a little bit. Those 2 interceptions. What do you think it did to his Zelo, Tony?
What was it before the game?
It was 244 as a pure passer.
244 as a pure passer. I'm going to guess it dropped him to like 210.
No, actually, because he has so many games and so few interceptions and so many touchdowns and yards. It actually dropped him 10 points. He's still 231.
Oh, okay. That's not as bad as I thought it would be.
No,
I
it's
thought it would
not.
really penalize him for those 2.
I mean, it's not going to help. Like, you can't do that for the rest of the season, but I think it's
Yeah.
going to give him a one bad game.
Okay.
So let's wrap the segment by talking about the Vikings playoff chances. 538 put them at 35% chance to make the playoffs, a 0.6% chance to win the division that the Packers kind of have firmly in control. Packers would need to lose out, and the Vikings would need to win out. And then the Vikings would control the series against the Packers, which would be the tiebreaker. But obviously, I seriously doubt that's going to happen. Just the Packers losing out. The Vikings could totally win out. I have no idea what this team even is. But let's run over the last couple of games, Tony. So in Week 15, the Vikings are at Chicago. You're going to chalk that up to a win, correct?
Yeah, that should be a win.
Then they play home to the Rams.
That should be a loss, but frankly I don't know with this
Should
Rams
be, but
team.
I don't know.
I don't have any. This Rams team almost lost to the Lions.
Yeah, I mean, but the Vikings did lose to the Lions.
The Vikings did lose to the Lions, but at the same time, this team also can drop 29.5. So
yeah, so could the Rams, but I digress. Okay, we'll count that as a loss. That would put the Vikings at 7-8 for when they play the Packers in Week 17.
loss.
They are at
There's
Green
no
Bay.
Chance. There's no chance.
I kind of
Vikings
figured
on that one.
they close with Chicago, though.
Okay, so they'll win 2 games in their last 4, and they will both be against the same team.
So at 8-9, that would mean the Vikings have a 12% chance of making the playoffs, which is not favorable. If you change the win against the Rams, that actually increases them to an 80% chance of making the playoffs, which is kind of crazy to me. And if you change the Packers loss to a win, it's 70% chance to make the playoffs. So in other words, they need to go 3-1 to have any sort of realistic chance of making the playoffs, which I could have told you. You need to be 9-8 to make the playoffs.
Yeah, you have to at least, like the very first criteria should be above 500.
Oh, winning record.
Yeah, winning record.
Now let's turn our attention to the Steelers. Like I talked about at the opening of their show, do not have a good chance to make the playoffs right now. It's about 10%. They currently are last in the AFC North because the Browns are 6-6, the Steelers are 6-1, so that tie counts against them in the standings until the Browns play another game. And if they lose, then it would put the Steelers above them. But right now they're fourth in the AFC North. We kind of predicted them to be fourth in the AFC North. So I think that I feel like the record makes sense for the Steelers where they're at. They have an incredible defense, an offense that maybe is catching a little bit of fire, but I feel like it's a little too late in the season. But I guess my question is to you, at 10% chance to make the playoffs, you don't see it happening, right? We'll go over that path in a little bit. But do the Steelers need to blow it up? Because that was something that was talked about in the game, because Big Ben obviously wants to retire, but without Big Ben, the Steelers do not have a quarterback. Obviously we could talk about them acquiring someone in free agency, which is totally possible. I'm inclined to think that they could get someone. I think the Steelers are a quiet, good destination for a quarterback, given the weapons, the defense. I think they're a solid spot at the very least. But do you see them blowing it up? And first, do you see them making the playoffs? And second, do you see them blowing it up?
They're not going to make the playoffs. I don't think they're making the playoffs, but at the same time, for Mike Tomlin's sake, because I do like me some Mike Tomlin, I don't think that his undefeated season streak is
so they're going to go
that much jeopardy.
8-1.
I think they at least go, break even. I don't want to see that streak end because I do like Mike Tomlin.
I love Mike Tomlin. If I could have a head coach, I'd take Mike Tomlin right now. Like, he's such a good coach.
Yeah, I do think that they need to blow it up on the offensive side. I'm gonna call out 2 players that they should get rid of at the end of the season. One of them's going to retire. Big Ben. He knows he's done. He's kind of said he's going to retire at the end of the season. There's no way it's like a Tom Brady scenario where it's like, I'm on an absolutely loaded team. Why not go win another ring? I'm not going to have to do that much. I do think that Big Ben knows that the Steelers are kind of falling, if anything, every year, and they're going to take a couple years to rebuild. At that point, he will not physically be able to throw the ball. He already can't run as it is. So that's one guy. The other guy that I think that
I was gonna say watching him get that first down
was
felt
painful.
like agony. I felt pain for him when he fell on the ground. I was like, oh no, Big Ben, why did you run?
It was brutal to watch. It was like watching the Burger King try to run for a first down. It was just he's one cheeseburger away from being on the O-line. It's bad.
Yeah, I felt pain.
Yeah.
All right, so Big Ben is the first guy, but that one's pretty obvious. Who's the second guy?
Chase Claypool.
I
want you
wholeheartedly disagree.
I want you to trade Chase Claypool because I think on the one hand you can get assets for him, maybe not a quarterback, but you can get assets for the offense, and he is just a terrible locker room presence. One thing that I have seen is on the Pat McAfee show, they have Mike Tomlin on every now and then. And one of the things that Pat was talking about was through some sources that he had, some of the former Steelers greats are really bashing Claypool specifically after he made that comment about, oh, it'll be better if we have music in the practice. Dumb. It's just like for the better part of his career, he's been a bit of a drama queen, and it's been just tough to watch as a fan. Because it's like, when you think of Pittsburgh, you think of, we are going to run you over, hit you, destroy you physically, and then you have Chase Claypool, who's on, doing TikTok dances and wanting music at practice, and Mike Tomlin was like, he's a wideout. I'm going to let him be a wideout. I'm the coach. I'm going to determine practice. I think that's a fair share of labor or something like that.
That quote.
That was great. That was a great response. And then just the lack of football awareness. Like, sure, if you're a good receiver, you can catch the ball. But you need to know that 10 seconds of stupid celebration in that moment
matters. Yeah.
That is so, because that's 2 plays. That first play that they ran on first down took 5 seconds. So assuming it takes 5 seconds, that's an extra 2 plays that you have. That's doubling your chances of getting into the end zone right there. He cost you the game. At worst,
it's another play, which consider it. I'm not going to go that far. Your defense cost you the game by allowing the Vikings to put up that many points in the first half.
True.
Like maybe the Chiefs, like genuinely, like I'm being serious. Do you think the Chiefs in that spot are going to be able to come down from 29-0? Because that feels like not this year's Chiefs, but like we're talking about Chiefs of the past when they were, one of the greatest offenses we've ever seen in the league. So I'm not going to put it all on Claypool. I'm going to say he didn't help in that instance, but he was instrumental to just getting to that point. Like when you're criticizing him for making that celebration, you have to remember he made the celebration, like, because he did, he completed the play.
Yeah, but I don't care if you make that play. You should make that play. You are an NFL receiver. That is 100% the play that you should be making. But to celebrate that in that moment, you have to know better than that. Like, nobody else in the league is going to do that. Everybody else I've ever seen in that situation gets the ball to the ref as soon as they can, puts it down, gets to their spot. But no, Chase Claypool has to be Chase Claypool. He has to celebrate. He has to waste time. And after Ben snapped the ball and threw it into the dirt there to stop the clock, Claypool was ticked. Like, you could see he was visibly upset, because I'm sure every single one of his teammates threw some expletives at him. I would be going after him. I would be chewing him out for that, because that is just unfathomable to be paying you millions of dollars and you do something that stupid. So I think that he's a good receiver, but you trade him. You get him out, because he's just not good. I bet you most of that locker room despises that guy.
I mean, I don't know about. I'm not going to go as far as despise. I do have a follow-up. So if you're going to get rid of Chase Claypool, you almost have to get rid of Juju Smith-Schuster, and at that point, you don't have wide receivers.
Well, I don't think I get rid of Juju. Juju has been a lot better this year. He's not been great. Yeah, like, he's also not been perfect. Gone. Okay, yes, he's been gone, but at the same time, that should kind of give him more room to do stuff on the sideline if he really wanted to. Like, I genuinely think that while he's not going to be your model, wide receiver in the locker room, I don't think he's going to be the guy that is like an elite leader for the team. All he has to do is just stay out of drama. That's all he's got to do because he's talented. I'll give him that. He's just like Chase Claypool is. He's talented. If
So
Claypool could stop being an idiot, I would say awesome, keep him 100%. But I do think that Juju's kind of cleaned it up a little bit. I think Tomlin really
he's
got on him.
been gone for 7 games. He hasn't
Yes, I
played
know
since
he's
week
been
5.
gone, but we haven't seen any drama from him pregame. We haven't seen any drama from him on the sideline. And after this whole Mahomes thing, you know that's going to get picked up if it's happening. And it's not happening.
I don't know. I think it matters that he hasn't been active. So
It
Claypool is
matters,
valued
yeah.
by Zelo's a 54, whereas Juju is only a 25. Now,
Mhm.
granted, we only have 5 games of Juju, whereas we have 11 games of Claypool. But with that knowledge, would you still be kind of resolved to trade?
Yeah, I would trade him right now when he's got some talent around him. Like he's going if you trade him, you're going to get some stuff back. It might be draft capital, it might be another good player. I'll just do a 1-for-1 trade. Like I will give you a receiver. I will give you Chase Claypool. If you can give me a receiver that's even a little worse than Chase Claypool that has no drama, I want that.
Yeah, I don't think I'm trading him. I think I'm
He's
not a
just a
fan of his.
distraction. It's
Look,
like Odell with the Browns. Look at how much better the Browns did the week he was gone.
I'm not a fan of his presence. Okay, well, look at the Browns' sins. Like, don't look great.
Yeah.
But I'm not a fan of his presence. I'll give you that much. I don't like it. And I kind of do. One thing I love about the NFL is that like the team almost reflects the city. Like
Yeah.
Pittsburgh is a very hardworking city,
Mm-hmm.
and the Steelers reflect that. And I love that about the NFL. I love that you can
Yep.
kind of see that with the Eagles too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Giants to some extent too. But and I know he's a clash, but he's also really good. I think if there's anyone in the NFL who can kind of keep a leash on Claypool, it's Mike Tomlin.
Well, he better tighten it up. If he has a leash on him, he better make it to one chain link at this point after that stupidity.
Again, I know it's dumb, but you shouldn't be there in the first place with that defense.
I
Like,
mean,
and
yes, the
also, I'm
defense
also
did
going to say
blow
the
it.
center. The center killed them.
The defense did blow it in the first. The defense blew it in the first half, yes. The second half, they tightened up. The offense obviously got way better. The Vikings Vikinged, just like they normally do. But you have a shot at winning that game. Like, I don't even, like you said, can the Chiefs of the past win this game? Yeah, because the Steelers of the present should have won that game. Freiermuth catches that ball, which he probably catches 95 out of 100 times, honestly. They're suddenly a 2-point conversion away from overtime. And at that point, you're going in overtime with that much momentum. You're probably going to win that game. So, Freiermuth drops it. You have an extra 10 seconds. You can run another play. You might be able to run another 2 plays. That's humongous.
I mean, okay, so looking at ESPN's win probability model, even where they were in the game, ESPN still had the Vikings with a 90% chance of victory. I'm just gonna say that 10 seconds maybe drops it to 80. I still would have taken. If I'm the Vikings, I'm taking those odds. I know. I don't know. I hate putting it on Claypool for Claypool catching the ball.
Yeah, well, okay, with those odds, I love stats, I love odds, I love the percentages, but at a certain point, the odds and the percentages don't know. They're too objective. Like the odds don't take into account the momentum of the game. That is humongous. Like anybody that has watched football will tell you, momentum is a humongous thing in a football game. There are certain things that the stats I think just don't understand and don't account for, which is why I'm taking the Steelers if they have another 10 seconds there. I just am.
I would take the Vikings because like the Vikings weren't great, but they were also not dead in the water offensively. Like they were still scoring.
Well, this is the same Vikings team that was playing the back goal line against the Lions when they just ran up and just dropped somebody on the goal line. Jared Goff made the easiest throw of his life.
No, but they also adjusted. Like you could also see it in their defensive scheming. But we're probably spending a little bit too much time discussing Claypool and hypothetical trades. It is interesting and something we can talk a little bit more about in the offseason, but we do have to move on the show. Let's look at the Steelers' probability. So in week 16, they will play at Kansas City. I'm going to assume we're going to say that's a loss. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it should be a loss.
So then they play at home to the Cleveland Browns in week 17.
I'm gonna say they win that one.
Win, okay. And then they're at Baltimore for week 18.
They should lose that one.
So they'll lose that one. And I completely, because I'm a dummy, forgot that the Steelers played the Tennessee Titans in week 15. What are we saying for that?
loss.
So that would put them, unfortunately for you, Tony, at 7-9-1, and they missed the playoffs at that point.
Dang it.
So
Wow. Sorry, Tomlin.
yeah, I mean, hey, you know what? They shouldn't have beat the Ravens. They shouldn't have been in the game with the Vikings at that point. They found a way. Maybe they'll find a way. I think they're a good team. I think that defense, if the defense shows up, if TJ Watt isn't injured, that defense would have played much better in the first half, I think. All right, but let's move on. So we're gonna quickly hop on over and look at our really bad picks, our really good picks, and then our really surprising picks in a segment we like to call best win, worst loss, and biggest surprise. So best, worst, and surprise. So Tony, why don't you go first? What do you want to share first? Do you want to celebrate, cry, or just like have your mouth hit the floor for a second?
I'm going to go with my best first. I'm going to take Chiefs versus Broncos. And on face value, this sounds dumb. Like, this sounds really obvious. Like, yeah, of course you took the Chiefs here. But I was genuinely conflicted before picking this game officially, just because the Chiefs have been underwhelming. The Broncos like to show up on the most random of weeks. Like, when they should be out of it, they like to show up. This seemed kind of like one of those games where the Broncos could definitely kind of up and take the underdog kind of win in this one. It seems like underdogs have been doing phenomenally well this year. So I almost took the Broncos, to be totally honest with you, but I decided against it. I decided against it. I went with the Chiefs, and that's going to be my best pick.
Yeah, I honestly almost took the Broncos to cover. Like, I was really tempted to pick them to cover because I know a lot of people were doing that. Because I believe the spread was pretty big, was it not?
It was decent. I don't think it was like humongous, but it was pretty good.
I think it was 10.
Yeah.
Or 9-5 or something.
It was somewhere around there.
I almost took them to cover. Glad I didn't, but I almost took them to cover. Didn't they have that? They had like a 12-play, like a 20-play, 12-minute drive that scored 0 points.
Yep.
And that was truly hysterical.
Yep.
Okay, so my best pick was Chargers at Bengals because I don't understand the Chargers. And I have a firm understanding of the Bengals, and luckily those two came together for me to pick the Chargers. And so I finally got a good Chargers win I can feel good about. Tony took the Bengals, so that was a pick that moved me up a game. I have a 2-game lead on him in our prize pool wager. Yep. So, like we're looking good. Maybe I'll close this down the stretch. I've had a really good second half of the season.
Yeah, you've been obliterating me.
It's been accompanied by a really bad half.
Yeah, it's been awful. These upsets have been killing me.
Yeah, it's been bad. Okay, so I'm going to cry a little bit because last week I said that Dalvin Cook missing the game mattered for the Vikings and that the Lions were scrappy and that they want to win every single game and that the Vikings are the Vikings, but I still took the Vikings despite my gut saying this one might go to the Lions. And you know what? The Vikings Vikinged, the Lions lioned, and it turns out the Vikings Vikinging is stronger than the Lions lioning, and so the Lions found a way to win it. So good for the Lions. I felt happy for Dan Campbell.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to have to go with my worst pick being your best, Bengals versus Chargers. I thought we would see the Bengals kind of get out of their midseason slump of mediocrity, but they just didn't. They continue to show that they need a couple more pieces. They're not quite that team yet. They're getting there. Burrow, Jamar Chase, they have improved the team dramatically. I think they're on the right track for in the next maybe 2-3 seasons. They can make the playoffs and actually do something. The Chargers went back to their dominant ways once again. I didn't think they would, but I do love seeing the Chargers come back and do well. If I had to pick a worst game, I'm okay with this one because I do love our boy Justin Herbert.
Yeah. He leads the league in QBR, if I recall correctly, which is crazy to think about.
Nice.
So what result made your jaw hit the floor?
I'm going to take the low-hanging fruit here, Vikings versus Lions. I don't really need to explain why, but honestly, I'm going to say the Lions, I already said this earlier, they didn't win this game. The Vikings lost it. That last play, what was the secondary doing? Like, that was... Again, that was the Vikings' poor coaching that we're seeing is taking games away from them. Why do you have 3 guys in the back line guarding against the nearly impossible toe drag swag catch when all they're going to do is just like even the Lions are smart enough to just drop a guy right on the goal line and Jared Goff just throws the running out route. Like that's all it's going to be. He's just going to sit there and catch it. It's easy. So why would you I didn't understand when I saw them lining up. I was like, oh, okay, they're pretty far back. They probably, once the ball snapped, I'm sure they're going to jump up. Yeah. and the ball snapped. Everybody runs their route, and those 3 guys are just statuing right on the back line, making sure nobody throws it through the uprights. What are you doing?
Yeah, no, that's some pretty horrible late game situation calling. My biggest surprise was that I almost picked football team and Raiders, but I know that the football team is on the upswing and the Raiders, they're not good. Like, we have this question every year, are they good? And we know now that they're probably not that good because they're 6-6 right now. They were, I believe, at one point 5-2 or something.
Yep.
So I think the real winner surprise of the week should be the Seahawks 49ers, because the Seahawks had an incredible play on special teams where they had an 80-yard fake punt run. And that fake punt run is going to play spoiler to the 49ers trying to make the playoffs. Like, it genuinely hurt their probability of making the playoffs so much. And the Seahawks, like, they're not going to make the playoffs, but let them try, I guess.
Yeah, it was tough to watch because I picked the Niners. I thought the Niners were going to do it. I think Seattle is pretty much dead in the water. So I thought the 49ers had a pretty good chance of winning this game, but of course, Seattle just had to pull some crazy play out of nowhere.
Yeah, I thought the 49ers were going to win that one too, and I was very clearly wrong. All right, so let's go to our pick'em. It's time to make predictions that we'll be talking about here in best, worst, and biggest surprise. Emphasis on worst next week. So our first one, it's Dallas at Washington. The Cowboys, as we kind of talked about at the open, they're 8-4. The Washington football team is 6-6, but the Cowboys have been really sluggish lately. They opened the season as one of the most dynamic offenses in the NFL, and almost in kind of like the Chiefs, if you a little bit to some extent. Their offense is really cooled, and their defense has stepped up and is one of the better, bigger surprises in my opinion. Whereas the Washington football team, they feel like they may have put something together here. Their defense has quietly gotten really good. They are missing a few key important players, but their offense is kind of working. Taylor Heineke is making you go from, oh, this guy's not a good quarterback, to maybe, you know what, maybe he could be a starting quarterback. So at least for Washington. So Tony, this one is a very closely contested game. I think a lot of people are saying you can kind of pick it either way. I'm taking the Cowboys, but I do like the football team to cover. Who are you taking?
I'm taking the Cowboys, and I don't think the Washington football team covers. Like, I really don't. I don't understand why people are saying this game is going to be so close. Because on paper, the Cowboys are so much better in every way on paper. Now, of course, in the game, doesn't matter what the on paper shows. The hype around the Cowboys is real. I do think that if this is going to be their year to make that Super Bowl run that you hear Cowboys fans talk about every single year, this might actually be the one if they can get healthy again. So even injured, I think they win this game. And honestly, I think you need to do one thing that's going to help you in 2 facets. You need to rest Zeke, and resting Zeke is not only going to help make him healthier for upcoming games, you're going to be better as a team without Zeke injured, because Tony Pollard should be getting the ball. Tony Pollard is an extremely underrated back, and just making him split carries with a hurt Zeke that's not going to do much of anything for you. It's just hurting your team, and it's literally hurting Zeke. Rest him. Make him healthy. It doesn't make any sense for you to go into the playoffs with a 70% Zeke at best when you can just go in with 100% Zeke and let your backup, who's been phenomenal, just take the carries. He can do it. Why not let him?
So it's currently being reported that Tony Pollard is likely out, which means that we're going to see more Zeke than average.
Still rest Zeke. Just have Dak throw the ball 50 times. I don't care. Just get Zeke healthy.
I feel like that's partially one of the reasons why that people are saying this one could be surprisingly close. I don't know. I think that the Cowboys are going to win this because their defense is good and can force turnovers, and Taylor Heineke is not going to make it hard to force turnovers. But I do think this one's going to be close because we've seen such kind of like a really stagnant Cowboys offense. Tony, so the probability, the quality of game for Vikings, importance for Vikings Steelers was 74. Where do you think importance is by 538? According to for Cowboys Washington?
This is another game that's going to be extremely important, but I don't think it is. I really don't. I think even if Washington wins this game, I don't really care, because I don't think the Cowboys are going to be getting the number 1 seed regardless. There's just too many NFC loaded teams. So at that
Yeah.
point, I think that all they can really do is what? Win the division? Okay, cool. Win your division. That's not hard to do. You're going to do that regardless of if you beat Washington or not. So I don't think this game's that important. I would peg it at, 30%, but it's probably going to be like 70 again.
65.
65. Yeah. I don't think this is
Yeah.
that important.
I
I
think
really
it's
don't.
important only if the Cowboys lose, right? If the Cowboys win, like we already knew that was kind of like you said, we knew that was going to happen. But if the football team wins, they're opening the door. Not a very wide door opening. Like it's like if
Yeah,
this is a
but
closed door,
in
like if
in
this is
the
a closed
end, they
door,
are
it's like
not better than the Cowboys. And even if the Cowboys get in on a wild card by some absolute miracle, it doesn't matter. They're going to win more than Washington's going to. Washington's going to be a first round out. Cowboys can still go to the Super Bowl. I'm not worried about them.
Yeah. All right, I'll top on the next one. This one's a bit of a bummer. It's the Jaguars at Titans. The Titans are an 8-point favorite. Big surprise. The over-under is 43.5. I like Tennessee to beat the spread here, and I think that this is one that could kind of get ugly. We saw Jacksonville. They're just not a good team. I don't think they're a good team. I know that the Titans are banged up, but I'm still taking them to win this one.
I think the Jags are real. I think the Jags are real terrible. I think they're so bad. And the Titans are not the best team, but they certainly have the firepower to blow out Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars. So I think that the Titans win and blow them out of the water.
Guess what the quality is for this one?
-40.
So no,
I know that's not on the scale, but for me it is -40.
It's 6 out of 100.
That makes sense.
Me laugh. It's an earned 6. All right, next one is the Seahawks at the Texans. Seattle's an 8.5 favorite, hot up there when it's the 49ers. The Texans were shut out by the Indianapolis Colts last week. I am taking the Seahawks, and I feel like this is pretty comfortable. The Seahawks beat the 49ers. I've said that the 49ers are a playoff team, and the Seahawks maybe hurt that statement a little bit. The Texans are a bad team. Their offense ranks 32nd in the league. And despite all of Seattle's injuries and struggles, they rank 11th by lineups. So I'm taking Seattle here. I just don't think the Texans are any good.
I'm going to take the Seahawks as well. But I would not be terribly surprised if the Texans win this game or make it close. Because this just feels like one of those games, right? Like the Seahawks should be way better, but we also know the Seahawks of the past have been known to later in the season just kind of kick the bucket and Russ becomes Big Ben for a couple games. So I do think that, if the Texans decide to show up and the Seahawk like they always seem to do, I think the Texans, this is not an impossible game for them to win. The Seahawks are just they're so hit or miss. I have to go Seattle. I hope they win. Seattle should win.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not impossible. The Texans can make it a close one.
Yeah. Guess the quality.
-20.
No, 3.
3. Okay.
Yeah,
well, hey,
3.
I went in half, and so did they. So, I have the right idea. Just the wrong
something
numbers.
There. All right, so our next game is Raiders at Chiefs. Kansas City is a 10-point favorite, over under 47.5. The Chiefs won this one last time in a bit of a blowout that everyone kind of felt like the Chiefs are back. I expect to see that again. The Raiders started 5-2, and they're now 6-6, while the Chiefs started 3-4, and they're now 8-4. So Chiefs are going to win this one. Chiefs are going to win it comfortably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. The Chiefs, Raiders have been lackluster for the past few weeks, and while the Chiefs, they're not their Super Bowl selves, I do think they're certainly better than they were at the beginning of the season. I think there are 3 guarantees in life: death, taxes, and the Raiders starting off hot and sucking at the end. It happens every single year.
So because it's a divisional matchup, you'd think that it would be really important, right?
Because it's a divisional matchup, it should be important, but since neither of these teams are anything phenomenal, I'm going to guess it's
that's
maybe
quality.
Yeah, are we guessing the quality? You're
no, I said importance.
Oh, importance.
I said importance. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. I mean, somewhat important. I don't think it's going to be 70s. Maybe like 40, 50.
It's 33.
33.
538 really feels like the Chiefs. Yeah, the Chiefs are really supposed to have locked up the division according to 538. Yeah. All right, let's hop on to the next one. This one is going to be a pretty low quality score too. The Saints are playing at the Jets. The Saints are a 5.5 favorite, which feels like a really weird kind of random number. And the over-under is 42.5. And it's a testament to how bad Taysom Hill was on Thursday Night Football that I almost want to take the Jets.
That would be a hot take. Why don't you go ahead and do that, Tom?
I'd
be very
rather
okay with
not.
that.
I'm just gonna take the Saints.
I'm going to take the Saints as well. Like, come on. I know the Jets have had some upsets, and their Jets fans have really been riding those upsets through all of their other terrible losses. And I know the Saints are hurt, but still, you can't really take the Jets here. Like, if you do, you could potentially, like, win, because this seems like another one of those games where the Jets win and they just absolutely should not. They've done it twice already, so they could do it again. Taysom Hill was
It would be the
awful.
least surprising upset of the week, I think.
Yeah, I think that is true. And this is also why Taysom Hill should not be your starting quarterback.
Nope.
Trevor Siemian is not a generational quarterback. He's not your franchise guy, but he sure as heck is better than Taysom Hill.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, heck, Ian Book at this point. Bring out Ian Book.
Give him some time. Yeah, give him some field time.
That quality score is 2.
Is that the lowest one of the week? It's got to be, right? There's no way there's a 1.
So Lions-Broncos, not to spoil it, is a 3. But yes, Saints.
That's got to be the worst. Yeah, it's the worst.
I think it's the worst I've seen actually all season in terms of quality, which is really saying something.
Yeah. Speaking of terrible
let's
games,
move on to
why
the
don't you
next
go to
one.
the next one. Yep, there you go.
Wait, terrible games. Tony,
No. There we go.
I don't want to mess up the order. So the Falcons are at Carolina. Carolina's 2.5 favorite. The over-under is 42.5. I don't understand how Carolina is favored, but I'm not going to complain about it. And in my notes, I'm going to take ... because I could not pick a winner. I guess I'm going to ride with Carolina because the way I look at it, this bet is betting, am I going to bet the Falcons defense or Cam Newton? And you know what? I don't like either betting on either one, but when I have to bet between the two of them, I guess I'll take Cam Newton.
I'm going to go the opposite. I'm taking the Falcons. I think the healthy Panthers win here, but they aren't healthy and they aren't even close. I originally said I don't think the Panthers are going to win a game after October, and so far they've won against the Cardinals in one of the weirdest games I have seen in many a moon. Other than that, though, they have been pretty terrible, and I think we're going to continue that trend. Yeah, I like my prediction still. I think other than that absolute, like even Tom will admit, that is a fluke win. That is a 1 out of 100.
Absolutely.
So I think that other than that, I still like my prediction of no wins past October.
Yeah, no, it was a very weird game. I'll give you that one. It does count, but it's a weird game.
It's a win. It's a tally in the win column.
Yeah. So the quality of that one is a 12, and the importance is a 14. Okay. So the overall rating is 13 on that one. Sounds about right. These are two teams that no one's going to care about.
Checks out.
Yeah, sadly, it's tragically accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that one hurts. Okay, so our next one is Ravens at Browns. The Ravens are a 3-point dog to the Browns, which feels really crazy considering that one of these teams is the division leader and one of them is the Cleveland Browns, who are 6-6.
Yeah.
The over-under set for 42.5. I don't like it because the Ravens, they've won a lot of close games that they probably shouldn't have, and as we saw with the Steelers, it caught up to them a little bit. But I am going to take the Ravens because Lamar Jackson threw 4 interceptions against the Browns, and the Ravens still won. You shouldn't do that. Like, that's the first time I think in football history that's ever happened. Like, it's a true testament to how bad the Browns are playing it sometimes.
Yep.
So I'm going to take the Ravens, but I really don't feel comfortable.
I'm also going to take the Ravens. I'm not making this mistake twice because the Ravens and the Browns actually played each other 2 weeks ago. The Browns are actually playing them back-to-back after a bye week. So I took the Browns last time. The Ravens can't lose a divisional game twice, but the Browns can't lose a divisional game twice in a row. So, especially to the same opponent. I think, the Ravens should win again. I think that it was pretty close the last time, and it was only close because Lamar absolutely kicked the bucket, and it was just an awful performance. So I think that there's no way Lamar is as bad as he was last time. Like, even if he throws 3 interceptions, he'll be better.
4 would be pretty historic.
Yeah.
Okay, so next game is the Giants at the Chargers. The Chargers are a point favorite. The over-under is 43. I'm going to take the Chargers, but I'm going to take the Giants to cover, and here's why. The Chargers have, I believe, 0 wide receivers on their roster at the moment due to a combination of both injury and COVID protocol. They will have, I think, 1 wide receiver for their game against the Giants, but the Giants are so bad. I am going to take the Chargers, but the Giants did beat the Raiders, so it wouldn't be crazy surprising. So I'm going to take the Giants to cover, but I still like the Chargers to win this one.
Okay, I'm going to take the Chargers. I think the Giants are a terrible team. I actually forgot about the whole wide receiver issue, so I guess I am also going to take the Giants to cover. But I do think that on the same note, the Chargers are on a pretty major upswing with quite a bit of momentum after that Bengals win.
No, for sure. All right, so this is the one that is a really bad quality rating. I think it should be a 1 because that would be immensely funny to me. But it's Lions at Broncos with Denver being a 10-point favorite, which feels like too much. And the over-under is 42.5. I'm going to take the Lions to cover because we just saw them win a scrappy game. I know Tony said that it's not because the Lions won that the Lions won that game, if that sentence makes any sense, but it's because the Vikings lost, and they did actually lose. So I don't know. 10 feels like too much considering the fact that we've seen Denver struggle to move the ball well and score points. And we have seen the Lions be a really feisty team. So Lions to cover this one.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Broncos here. We got to congratulate the Lions. They got their first win. That's awesome to see. I'm a Packers fan. I did very much enjoy seeing the Lions get a win. I love me some DC. Goff actually looked like the quarterback that they're paying him to be for a few minutes. So enjoy it, Lions fans. I doubt it happens again. But
Could
I
happen
do.
here.
I did very much enjoy seeing them get at least one win. It was like the way the team reacted was like they won the Super Bowl. It was awesome to
Fans
see.
too.
Dan Campbell was so excited, and I do think that Dan Campbell is just a very classy coach. I love. We were skeptical of him at first, biting off kneecaps and stuff, but I've grown to love him. He's awesome, and I do think he very much deserves at least one win.
I don't think that there's ever been a head coach who has been waiting so long to get a win, like their first NFL win. So I was happy for him. I think that I don't know. I think he's building a fun and like feisty culture, and I like that. It fits Detroit.
I like that.
Okay, so the 49ers are Bengals in Cincinnati. 49ers are 2-point favorite, and the over-under is 49, which is really interesting. Tony, we are disagreeing on this one. Do you want to tell us why you picked the 49ers first?
I'm going to take the 49ers because I thought the Bengals were getting out of this weird kind of slump that they've been in against the Chargers, but they didn't. They got rolled, and I kind of expected again. I think the Niners are a very legitimate team, and like we just kind of said, they would have beat the Seahawks if it wasn't for a very, very fluky 1-100 special teams play that should not have happened. So I think that while the Niners are a very talented team, I do think the Bengals are also going to kind of continue their drought of mediocrity, and those two things combined are going to make for a Niners win.
Okay, so if you have a drought of mediocrity, is that not a drought of being away from mediocrity? Like if you're in a drought, you don't have rain. So if you're in a drought of mediocrity, are you not being mediocre? Is that the problem of the drought of mediocrity?
It's a Friday. This is a weekend for me. Don't give me a headache. Just don't do it.
Just a little thought experiment. So I'm going to take the Bengals because I know that they lost to the Chargers, but the Bengals boast a top 10 defense except for a poor pass defense, whereas the 49ers actually have one of the worst passing attacks in the NFL and rely on the run, which I think the Bengals can control a little bit better than the pass.
That is
if
fair.
That makes any sense. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Fair.
I feel like I have a good understanding of the Bengals because I feel like they're one of my better teams. Maybe that's totally wrong. I don't know. Tony, this is actually the most important game of the weekend, if you can believe it or not. According to 538.
Can see that.
Yeah, I mean, it really is
happening. It is a very important game.
It's deciding the fate, really, of 2 playoff teams.
Yeah, because I mean, if the 49ers lose back-to-back Seahawks, Bengals, they are going to be it's going to be very tough for them to make it in, and the Bengals need to get out of this slump that they've been in. If they got to get a win if they want to have a chance of making the playoffs.
The Colts have come and passed them.
Which sounds really dumb to say. Like, yeah, of course they're going to need to get a win to get into the playoffs. That's stupid, Tony. I know it's stupid, but at the same time, they also just need to get some confidence back in themselves that they can get a win because I don't think they've had that. Jamar Chase has absolutely fallen off the face of the planet, which sucks because I'm still starting him every week.
Yeah, he had 50 yards against the Chargers.
Yeah, come on, dude. You were supposed to be breaking all the records. Continue that.
So at most important game of the week, 49ers at Bengals is a score of 96 in terms of importance, which is kind of crazy.
I
I
didn't think it'd be
know.
that high.
Well, it's so second most important game. Can you guess which one it is? It's one we've talked about.
It's one we've already talked about. Okay, let me go back through. It's not that one. It's that one's close.
Compelling radio, or I should say compelling streaming, I guess.
Compelling streaming. Okay, I'm gonna go. It's not the Cowboys Washington. It's not Jags.
Oh,
It's not the Seahawks. It's not the
oh.
Raiders. It's not the Saints. It's not the Falcons. It's the Ravens at the Browns, right?
Yeah, with a score of 89.
It's gotta be. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So it's a very important game. I mean, these division ones obviously are already more important, and the fact that I'm surprised the Browns Ravens is so high, but I do understand why.
Yeah.
Okay, so our next game, let's hop on over to Bills at Buccaneers. Tony, this is
Mhm.
another one where we disagree on. We went on a little disagree stretch here. So I'm taking Tampa Bay because the Patriots, I feel like, showed us that the Buffalo defense is not actually that good because they said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to pass 3 times this game. I think 2 of them are going to be completions. 1 of them won't be. And other than that, we are going to run the ball. Bill Belichick wore a Navy COVID mask coming into the game and ran an offense that would have made a Navy coordinator jealous.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna take Tampa Bay because Tampa Bay has been running the ball incredibly well as of late. In fact, I think they're better when they're running the ball than when Tom Brady is throwing the ball because Leonard Fournette is not throwing pick sixes to the Falcons.
That is true.
And I think that they are, at worst, if you do have to be an explosive team, I also think they are an explosive team, so they can hang with the Bills, who do have an explosive offense. But I think that explosive offense is going to be limited because we saw, and I feel like in past weeks, that you can really shut down the Bills. So I'm taking Tampa Bay, but I know you disagree, Tony. So why do you disagree?
I'm going to take the Bills. I think this is going to be a very good game. It's going to have huge playoff implications. I think the Bills are a solid team. I do think they're severely overrated. I also think that the Bucs have not been quite what they need to be and have been thought of to be coming into the season. So the Bills have entered their kind of prove it stretch where they're no longer playing terrible teams. They're playing good teams. It started with the Patriots. Then they're playing the Bucs this week. They're playing the Panthers, which kind of ruins it. And then after that, they play the Patriots again. So I think that 3 out of their 4 games are very important. This is kind of where they prove if they're a good team or not. I'm going to take them to win this one.
Interesting. So 538 has this one as being the highest quality game of the weekend.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Can you imagine what that rating is?
Oh, this is the highest quality game. I'm going to guess it's in the 80s.
94.
Shoot. Okay, that's pretty good.
A little bit off. The next closest is Rams at Cardinals, which is an overall 90. We'll get to that one in a second. But first, we're going to make a quick pit stop in what is surely an unimportant and probably low-quality game because it's Bears at Packers, where in a weird twist, the owner of the Chicago Bears, Aaron Rodgers, will be taking the field to play the Chicago Bears.
Right.
Which is just a very weird one. But yeah, give me the Packers. I think the Packers offense is going to be able to score. They have been able to score. And I think that their defense is going to shut down the Bears because the Bears, that's it. That's just my reaction to the Bears offense. Tony, I'm assuming you're taking your beloved Chicago Bears.
I'm going to take the Packers. Nice try. If Fields starts again and we can maybe get Jair back or Zadarius or Bakhtiari, which I don't think any of them are really going to be able to play this week, but we're getting close. Then they should also solidify a big win for us, even if we don't have them. I'm not too worried about it. Fields should be starting, I think, was the call already made for the game. It's just going to be probably a disaster for the Bears. I don't think that I don't think that Jimmy Graham's going to be holding to his statement of, "Oh, I went to the Bears. They just care about winning here. That's what they do. We left the Packers to go to the Bears. You really care about winning, right, Jimmy? Good job."
So the quality of this one is 53, but the importance is 12.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's just not going to be an important game. The Bears are not going to make the playoffs. They're like the Lions. Like they're going to be gone in the next week or two. Okay, so last game of the week. It's actually incredibly important while also feeling not important because I feel very resigned the Cardinals winning this one. I do feel crazy saying that the Rams are going to get swept by the Cardinals, but that feels like the place we're at, does it not?
Yeah, the Rams have just been so underwhelming against good teams. And while I don't know if the Cardinals are really the awesome team that we previously thought they would be, I'm going to take the Cardinals here. I don't think the Cardinals have to be that team that we thought they were. I think they have to be a good team to beat the Rams. Don't get me wrong, but I do think that the Rams struggles against good teams have kind of paved the way for the Cardinals to win this one pretty handily. So I'm not that worried about it, and I think the Cardinals win by a decent margin.
Yeah, I feel like in picking the Cardinals, I'm almost cheating on my prediction that the Rams are going to win the Super Bowl. And that prediction looked a lot nicer in the offseason than it does right now.
Yeah, it certainly did.
Sure. It looks like the dream team that you know what, they lived up to the hype for a while.
Yeah,
I'm going to take the Cardinals. I think that they are. I'm not going to say they're elite, but I do think they end up with the 1 seed just because they had such a fantastic start. And even when Kyler Murray was injured, they played pretty well for a franchise quarterbackless team that was relying on Colt McCoy.
Yeah.
All right, but everybody, that's our show. Look at that. It was almost under an hour, unlike last week where it went like to an hour and 15, I think. So hopefully everybody, you guys are all ready. You're going to go bet on DraftKings. You're going to make a ton of money. I hope that we helped you with that. Or you know what? You can pick the opposite of us. If you pick the opposite of Tony, like lately,
probably win more money.
You might actually go above 500.
All right, Tom. All right.
I joke. You could do the same thing for me in the first half of the season too. If you faded this guy, you made money. I would know. I didn't. All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you next week.
See you guys.